Why are you gagging? Why are you gagging, Mystique? Why are you gagging? Why are you gagging, Mystique? Why are you gagging? Why are you gagging, Mystique? Why are you gagging? Why are you gagging, Mystique? Why are you gagging? Why are you gagging, Mystique? Why are you gagging? Why are you gagging, Mystique? Why are you gagging? Why are you gagging, Mystique? Why are you gagging? Why are you gagging, Mystique? Bring it. Let's see. Last year this time you were ignoring calls from Madonna. Then you were trying to rescue your sister from falling houses and things. And last week...
My name is Jade Elektra. I'm also known as Alfonso King. That's my legal name. But I'm also known as DJ Relentless. And in the LGBTQ2+ and any other letters that need to be in there, I guess for a while, I've been a fixture in the community. I do a lot of work with HIV. As far as advocacy, my husband and I started the Pause TO events, which turned into Mingle. My husband started Pause Planet, the Facebook group. I started Pause Planet, the magazine. And I also created the Pause TO Awards, where we honor 10 people from our community each year for their activism and in HIV and AIDS. And you don't have to be HIV positive to receive that award. We just try and give a thank you because I believe that a lot of the people who work behind the scenes, this is thankless work. So this is an opportunity for us to say thank you and also shine a light on those who are doing the work. I don't know. I hope I answered your question.
That was amazing. When are the awards this year?
This year, the awards are at Buddies and Bad Times on December 16th.
Amazing. And December 1st is World AIDS Day, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. How are you preparing for that? Are there any events or special issues?
There's no special issues. I'm actually doing a lot of pre-interviews and work for the day. So the actual day, I'm not actually booked for anything,
right.
Which is actually good this year because I'm usually running around like crazy.
I'm sure that's true. I bet.
So it's nice that people got a hold of me earlier this year.
Right. You were from New York, right? You were quite active in the New York scene.
Well, I'm originally from Tampa, Florida.
Yes.
And then in 1992, I relocated to New York City. And landed right in the middle of the ballroom scene, which I had seen Paris is Burning, but it seemed like another world when I lived in Tampa. But when I got to New York, my upstairs neighbor was Paris Dupree. The queen who took me in was the Electrifying Grace, who worked at Sally's. And there, I got hired as the DJ, which is a really interesting story about DJing there.
Please, I'm dying to hear it.
Okay, they had hustler boys from the street DJing for the drag show, and the boys, which in 1992 I could not even imagine, could not read. So they had to pay someone else to sit with them during the drag show to tell them what to play.
That is so touching. That's really sweet.
So, but the problem is that I came in and they hired me and they fired all of them.
Oh, okay.
And I had to have a security escort leaving the building and getting back to our apartment, which was only a few blocks away.
Because you took their jobs.
Because I took their jobs. They wanted to jump me.
Oh no, Jay. Well, proof they obviously made it out alive.
Yeah, they eventually got over it, but like...
Oh my God.
So I was DJing at Sally's, and that's how I met Dorian Corey, and that's also how I met Angie Extravaganza, Octavia St. Laurent, who came by to perform, Grace, who took me in, hosted the Monday Nights Talent Show and the Go-Go Boy contest. So I met everyone in a matter of a month's time. Willie Ninja used to come in. And it was a weird thing, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but back then, this is what you called it. It was a tranny hooker bar.
Right.
And so, you know, that's what was going on. And I was in the midst of it. I wasn't turning tricks or anything. I was just the DJ. But it was an interesting place to be. There were celebrities who would stop by. Sting came by one time. The Pet Shop Boys came by. Delight. Who else? Tito Puente Jr., who actually came in and played for one of the drag queens, played like music live. It was an amazing time.
Yeah, ball culture, like at what stage was it in terms of it gaining the like global audience that it has now?
I think it was still building at that time. I mean, Vogue had already come out, and you know, so that was a big plus. Grace, who took me in, got really sick, and so they were throwing a benefit. And I mentioned to Dorian Corey that I had done drag in Florida, and she was like, "Oh, well, you need to do it up here, darling." And I was like, "Well, I don't have any clothes." And she was like, "Well, we'll fix that." And she made my early drag stuff, which I actually still have. I performed at the benefit, and Pepe LaBeija showed up for it, and she saw me, and she thought that I reminded her of herself when she was younger.
Oh, wow.
So she asked me if I wanted to join the house, and I said, sure. So I didn't have to walk a ball or anything. She just inducted me in.
Took you in.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So you'd done drag already in Tampa.
Yeah, my old drag name was Ebony, but when I got to New York, there was an Ebony Jet, and I was just like, oh, you know, this is a chance to reinvent myself. And I wanted to pay homage to Grace, but I wasn't going to call myself the Electrifying Jade.
Right.
So I called myself Jade Elektra.
What brought you to drag in the first place?
In Tampa, Florida, there was a kind of a famous for the area, a drag show, a drag contest on Monday nights at a bar called Renee's. And I used to go and enter, and I would do like Prince and Michael Jackson. So I might as well have been doing drag. But I would never win. Only the drag queens would win.
Right.
And I was so mad. This queen, I'll never forget, named Donna White, came in and made a dress on the dressing room floor. She cut out some material and stitched it together and threw a bunch of glitter on it and went out and won the $100. And I was furious.
Watching her make it.
So I was like, I can't look. And she was like a linebacker of a person. And I was like, and back then I was really, really skinny and, you know, yeah. So I was like, okay, I can't look any worse. So I knew nothing about makeup. I knew nothing. So I went in, and I'll never forget putting, I had no foundation on, but I didn't have to shave back then. I didn't have on a wig, because back then I had a jerry curl, because this is the 80s. Yes, I'm that old. So I thought, you know, I'll go for real girl. And I put on some lipstick and put a little bit on my finger and rubbed it on my cheeks for blush and went out on stage. They laughed from the second that spotlight hit me to the time I left the stage. And it was one of those rough crowds that they knew that, like, if you ran off the stage and they humiliated you, you could never come back.
Just eat you alive, eh?
So I just had to sit and take it. I did Stephanie Mills' version of How Come You Don't Call Me Anymore, the Prince song. And I had a prop, I had my phone, and I had a framed photograph of Michael Jackson for the first line. And oh man, just the laughter was so loud. I could barely hear the music at certain points. And but I went through it, and I went backstage, and the hostess, Tony Rose, pulled me aside, and she's like, look, I'm gonna help you. And she kind of guided me in the right direction. She gave me a Millie Jackson record, and she said, go learn something off of this. And I did, and I came back in a couple of weeks, and she helped me with makeup, and she had a dress that she lent me and a wig, and I went out and I won the contest.
Oh my God, yes. That's amazing.
So that began the career of drag, but I had no intentions of doing drag at first. So
what brought you to New York when you decided?
My coming to New York actually had to do with my HIV status. I did not want my family to know. And originally when I found out, I thought that I was going to die. So I started making plans of things that I wanted to do. And I had been to New York once before because I auditioned for the Crying Game, which obviously I didn't get. And and I fell in love with New York, and I was like, oh man, I really want to go back there. I was planning to take out a big loan and go and see New York and Paris and all this stuff. And I woke up one day and I was like, you're an idiot. You'll probably take all this money out and be as healthy as a horse and be in debt for the rest of your life. So just scrap that.
Yeah.
So I was working at a place called BVDs, which was Boys Video and Dance. And the owners got audited and got taken to jail because one of the owners of the place had murdered someone.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So the bar closed. No. This is in Tampa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And so I was out of a job, and I had worked at most of the places in Tampa, and I was just like, okay, I won't say the phrase that I said back then, but I had to get up and make a decision. So I got up and I did it. And I called an ex of mine and said, could I come up and look for work? And he told me yes. Well, he was going out with Grace. And I had spoken to Grace a couple of times. It was 2 weeks before I was supposed to go. And I called and Grace answered. And I was like, oh, I'm coming up and I can't wait to see you. And she's like, oh, that's great. Where are you staying? And I was like, with you? And she's like, you can't be coming to stay with us. We live in a room. And I'm like in a 2-bedroom apartment in Tampa. I have no concept of someone living in a room.
The New York box lifestyle.
Yeah, and my ticket was non-refundable, and I told her that, and she's like, okay, well, we'll figure it out. Just come up. So by the time I got there, she had put Michael out, my ex. Mm-hmm. So I was coming to stay with a stranger.
Wow.
Who had only spoken to me on the phone a couple of times, and but thank God she did that, and she worked at Sally, so she put in the word for me to come in and audition for the DJ thing. And that's how.
Talk about community building.
That's
fucking awesome. And you've always been like drawn to acting and music and dancing. You've always been a very
from a very young age. I was looking at some pictures the other day and was like, oh Lord, what was I thinking? But I always felt like I needed to be in front of a camera. I needed to model. I did hair modeling back in Florida. They loved me because they didn't have many black male models. So like I let them do whatever they wanted to my head. That's probably why I have no hair now.
Well, your hair today looks gorgeous.
Well, yeah, but she comes off.
Tell me a little bit more about getting into DJing and like the music aspect.
Okay, so in 1982 was my first trip to Chicago, and I heard mixing on the radio. They used to have a hot lunch mix, and I was like, how are they doing this? What are they? So when I got back to Florida, I was there for the summer. So when I got back to Florida, I saved up my money and went to Radio Shack, which I don't think they have those here.
I don't think so anymore,
it would be the equivalent of the Source now.
Yeah.
And they used to sell belt-driven turntables and mixers. And I still have the mixer. I don't have the turntables. But I would come home and practice every day in my bedroom. And I had a friend who was doing the same, but he could afford like the Technique 1200s. So every now and again, I would go over to his place so I could feel like a real DJ. But that's how I learned, was like practicing in my bedroom and, trial and error.
Wow. When did you start putting vocals down for your tracks? Like when did you get into making your own music?
Oh, that came after I got to New York, and I was working in an after-hours place called Jade's, which was, I don't know if I can say this, it was an after-hours jerk-off club.
I mean, we're sitting above one of the largest porn archives, so you can say it. I love that.
And Kevin Aviance and Franklin Fuentes used to come in all the time, and I would try my hardest to like talk to them and ask them like, could you bring me promos or whatever so I could play them here? And they would throw me such attitude because I was a nobody.
God, who are you? Why should we?
And they were there to party and stuff because, the drugs and the drinking and all that stuff. And so I was so mad about that. And I was talking to my friend Calvin Roberts, who was a producer. And he was like, you should put that on a record. And I was like,
the feeling, the anger.
Yeah. And he's like, whatever it is that you would like to say to them, you should say that on a record. And so that's how I started doing bitch tracks. And the very first one was Why Are You Gagging? And I make a reference to both of them in it.
I was listening to that today and I was actually wondering what the story behind that was.
And so I recorded it so I could play it when they walked in. And
the pettiness level is through the roof. I love that.
And the funny thing is years later, like after the song it's been out for a while, neither of them knew that it was about either of them. And when I tell this story in interviews or whatever, the first time I mentioned it in an interview, Franklin Fuentes called me and was like, I was never rude to you, girl. What are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, you were.
Are you sure? Yeah, exactly.
And Kevin was like, girl, I couldn't have been that nasty. I was like, girl, you were fucked.
You're totally fine. You can swear.
Okay.
You can swear.
Sorry. Well, you were fucked up and you were on many, many drugs. You know.
Right. It's
so,
also, like the person who gets affected is obviously going to remember.
Right. I was sober the entire time.
Exactly.
So of course, I remember it in great detail.
Oh my God, that's so funny. They both tried to be like, that wasn't me. Couldn't have been me. Oh my God, that song is so iconic. What's it been like? The feedback from that music and like being such a...
It's weird, especially since I got kind of taken when I got signed. I got signed to Progressive High Records, which was a division of Atlantic. Okay. And Jack Elliott was the executive producer. And apparently they sold, the record sold out in Atlanta, which I never knew anything about. And they also sold it overseas for compilations. So I never saw a dime. Me and Calvin got handed I think $2,000, and that was it.
Oh,
so I've never seen a dime from that song since then.
Oh my God.
And every now and again something would pop up and there would be some Japanese pressing or some remix that I had never heard of. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how is this possible?
Oh my God, that must feel so strange and bad for you, just to kind of strip you away from your own work.
I mean, it's a life lesson. Sure. In the music industry. You learn quickly that they will take advantage of you and they will take your vocals. I've had producers and DJs record me on a microphone just talking and
put that in tracks
and put that in a track.
That makes me so angry. I hate that.
So in my song Karma, if you've ever heard it, I make a reference remember when you tried to steal my vocals and make a track?
The irony that's probably getting stolen somewhere.
So that's how I began recording, me and Calvin, and I would literally get on a bus and go down to Baltimore where he lived, and we would hammer out a track overnight, and I would go back and get a couple hours of sleep and go to work that night.
Just hustling.
Yeah, so I would work until 4:00 in the morning, go and catch the first bus to get down there, hammer out a track, get back, and go to work.
Show business, baby. That's crazy. How did you have the energy for that?
I was in my 20s. It was, who sleeps? You're in the greatest city of the world. There's so much to do and see. Who sleeps?
So you re-released some of your tracks on the album that you just released, right?
Right. So the reason that happened is because now I actually own them.
Yeah, I was hoping that's what you would say.
So the idea was for you to actually go from the beginning of my career up to current. Mm-hmm. So, all the way, once it hits Undetectable and U equals U, then it starts going into all the new stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how's the feedback been so far?
Oh, amazing. And the original version of Bitch You Look Fierce had never been released. And the reason why was because it contains a sample of Things Just Ain't the Same by Deborah Cox, the Hex Hector mix. So I actually contacted him and asked him directly. I was like, look, I am a poor HIV positive drag queen in Canada. I don't have any money, but I would love to release this song. It's been floating around on the internet for decades now.
Yeah, let me own it, right?
Yeah, and he was like, oh, no, go ahead. He loved the song.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Thank God.
So this is that, because the song got signed to... what was it, Filthy Bitch Records in the UK. and was released, but they did all remixes. So they took the vocals and did something completely different with it. And because of it wasn't like the bitch track thing wasn't a thing there, I don't think that they knew exactly what to do with the track. So the mixes were good, but they were just very different and they didn't lend themselves to the ballroom scene.
Right.
So
yeah, it's very context-based, right?
Yeah,
definitely. How does it feel for you, having been such a large part of the ball scene at that time? Like, how does it feel to watch the kind of mainstream explosion of it and like the RuPaulization of Drag Race? Like, what is that like for you? If you don't need to answer, but
I'll answer. People are not happy with my answer about what I'm about to say, but like Drag Race has definitely changed the landscape of what drag is, and some of it is for the better, but some of it is for the worse, because of now younger generations think Drag Race is what drag is.
Right. Period. Right.
So the idea of talent, they're thinking more personality and attitude and, being catty with each other, because that's what the show features. And if you're going to play that game, then you're going to be on the show a lot.
The TV part, right?
Right,
Absolutely.
But if you go to YouTube and look up Showgirl 101, the same time when RuPaul was casting her first season, I shot a pilot for a drag competition called Showgirl 101.
Showgirl 101, the ultimate competition for female impersonation. And at this time, please help me welcome your hostess and MC, Miss Jade Elektra.
Welcome to Showgirl 101, being filmed at Langston's in Brooklyn, New York.
And it was about the talent. So what I did was each week I gave the queens a different category. So that one week was Broadway, one week was rock, one week was comedy.
Cool.
Right, and I made them do all these different things. And then the final test was a celebrity impersonation.
Wow.
And I pitched this to Viacom, which was the same company that originally did Drag Race.
Right.
But they wouldn't do the show because of the clearance of the music. Now you would think, because Viacom is with MTV and all of that, that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
But at the time, they didn't see the value in it and they didn't want to do it. And Rue's show was only going to be using her music. So they passed. And so it's just been sitting on the pilot for it has just been sitting on YouTube all this time.
I need to check that out.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Is it ever something you'd want to revisit, or like have someone else?
I wish I could, but like everything is Drag Race now.
Right.
So like, even if I did do it, someone would be like, oh, you're just copying Drag Race, or this is another spin-off of it, or what. And it's like, no, I had a completely different idea. I wanted to showcase talent, and I wanted the girls to learn. Because I came up through a talent show. I thought that's very important to the community.
Right.
And it's not just for drag, for singers, for anyone who's going to be on stage. So every place I've always been, I've always tried to do a talent show. So I had a couple here, but like the bars just didn't support them or wouldn't follow through.
Yeah. What is your experience like with the bar scene here in Toronto?
Well, I think that my name is Mud.
Oh no!
Amongst most of the bars.
Why?
Well, because I came from New York, and a drag booking there for $100 maybe is 1 or 2 numbers.
Right.
Here they want to pay you like 100, maybe 150, but they want you on stage for like 2 hours.
Right.
And I sing live, and I'm a recording artist. You're not.
It's a whole different
thing.
thing.
You're not gonna do that, and I'm not going to do that to myself. And less has always been more.
Yeah.
So the longer you're on stage, the longer they have time to pick you apart and say this and this and this. Come out, do your best numbers, wow them, and then get off.
Yeah, I like that.
And also have spaces in between the shows so the queens can socialize with the crowd.
Yeah.
This back to back to back to back drag all the way till closing.
Yeah, now that you say that, it's like it's not really about the community or the interactions, right? It's like how many drinks can you sell, and it's about the bar aspect, right?
Right. And it's just I can't do it.
Yeah.
And when I first got here, I was working at Cruise and Tangos, and they gave me my own show. But it was it was the early show, the earliest one before Michelle Ross, and I figured out a way to do a 2-hour show without the 18 numbers.
Right.
So what I did was I took the budget they gave me. I would book 2 queens, and everybody had 2 numbers to do for the show. And in the middle, I created another character named Paprika Jones, and we had a trivia game show called Thought You Knew.
Oh my God.
So when you got an answer wrong, the audience would yell, "Thought you knew." Yes. And
I love that.
and it was working, and people were beginning to come in and really enjoy it. But the other queens, I think, complained, like, why does she get special treatment? Why isn't she doing 18 numbers?
Right.
And so they canceled my show.
That's not the solution. Like, oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so my experience here is that the bar owners don't understand my thinking of how a show should go. And I just don't want to, I would love to build a show, but I would like it to be a cast, and I would like it to have like a structure to it, not walking in and handing in your music at the last minute. I would like everyone to actually have a role in the show. So if you do torch songs, you do torch songs. Yeah. If you're a dancer, you do dancing. If you're a comedian, be funny.
I love that idea.
So I put together a show called Faux Girls, and I've been,
I love that.
Yeah, and the ongoing joke is there are 4 girls in the show.
That's so good.
So, and that's what I try to do, is put together some girls that have different talents. Mm-hmm. And we entertain, and it's a dinner show. So we just did La Misa, and it was the first show sold out, the second show didn't, and then the owner decided that, he didn't want to revisit. And so I'm going to wait until after the holidays, and I'm going to look for another venue or see if I can at least book the show one time someplace else.
The city's in desperate need of spaces. Eh?
Well, and the other thing of it is I think the part that the city, the Church Street doesn't understand, it's not a destination.
Right.
If they actually did concentrate and form the shows and had a show director who paid attention, instead of letting the girls just come in and randomly do whatever they do over and over and over and over again, it could be a destination. Mado in Montreal, that's a destination. Right. People travel there and specifically go to see this show. There's nothing to see on Church Street.
Right.
It's all the same. You can see the same queen across the street.
Right.
She'll do a number here and run across the street and do the same number across the street. And so there's no destination, and that's a big problem. And the same with the club scene here. There really isn't a club scene anymore.
Yeah, right.
But no one's concentrating on actually like creating a sound and creating a room that's a regular thing. When I DJ'd at Cruise and Tangos, I sort of did that they thought they were punishing me by putting me in the back. I didn't care. I didn't care. I went in the back and I saw what was missing. So the upstairs DJ was playing soca and reggae and all that stuff. I was like, okay, well, there's club, there's pop, there's all this other stuff that you're not playing. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what I created in that room.
Cool.
Then there became lines to my room, and our room was out ringing upstairs, and that was a bigger room. So these are the things that, I wish that people would pay attention to. I've managed a couple of bars. I wouldn't try it here because I'd probably end up killing someone. Because that, as my grandmother used to say, a hard head makes a soft ass, and they really just don't get the lesson at all when you tell them something, or they steal it and then they turn it into something else. So some of the ideas that I've tried to do, they've tried to recreate, but they're not doing it properly. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, it's sore need of it, obviously. Well, how about Buddies, right? Because they're hosting.
Buddies has been amazing to me because of they knew what it was that I was trying to do, and they knew that I was trying to give back to the community. and I needed a space where that could happen. And so they have been very, very generous over the past 4 years, donating the space at least once a month so we could do the Mingle event.
Cool.
And it's a really tough thing right now, especially after the pandemic, because people are still not sure about going out or being in crowds or whatever. So, knock on wood, I hope that we stay at Buddy's or whatever, but I totally would understand if the numbers are that low, it's not really, it's costing them money to do it. So if it disappears, this would be the reason why we need more people to show up and support it. And you don't have to be HIV positive to come to the event. It would be very supportive and really great for the people who are HIV positive to see people there who just came in to support. So that's what I created the space for, because I needed to see a safe space where it didn't matter, about your status or whatever, and it's a given or it's not a given, whatever. You just walk in the door and meet people. We have, I host the show myself. Most of the times I try to get a guest DJ, but if I can't, I'm also the person that does the music.
DJ Relentless shows up?
I pre-record music video sets to play before and after the show.
Cool.
So I do all of it myself. I don't make a dime off of any of it. So, for anyone who thinks that I'm, she must be rolling in the dough or whatever.
The glamorous world of community work.
Right. There's no money to be made. Everything that's made that evening, I try to make sure that the organization is there. So I don't even handle any of the cash.
Right.
They're there to pick up the money themselves. So,
that's amazing.
And so we're, this is our, 8th year of doing the events and the awards. So, there's never a cover for a Mingle event, but we do take donations at the door, and we also have raffles. So we're going to have a raffle, and hopefully we can raise some money for them.
You've done work with the 519 as well, right?
Yes.
Of course. I saw you in 2019 at the memorial in Barbara Hall Park, was it? Singing Undetectable?
Yes.
That was amazing. That was like a viral moment for you as well.
It was. That totally blew me away that happened because, unfortunately, I have to bring up someone who passed away, but he was the one who got me in that year. Derek E. was an activist, and he and I were working on something for ASAP, and I mentioned to him, I was like, have there ever been any drag queens performing at the AIDS memorial? And he's like, I don't think so. And I was like, why? I was like, I've been here for over almost a decade. Why have no one asked me? I'm probably the most out drag queen about my status. And he was like, I don't know.
That's a great question.
Right. So he went back to the board and they talked about it and they were like, okay, we'd like you to perform. And so I submitted a bunch of songs. I was like, which one would you like me to do? And literally, I had done Undetectable the year before and got a okay response to it, but I wasn't thinking that they were going to pick it. I was just like, okay, I'll put this on. Yeah, right. Well, they wrote me back and they were like, we want you to do this. And I was like, oh. And at that time, because of the time period of Trump and everything else, everyone was on edge and very sensitive and very, and I was just like, okay, I know someone's going to be offended. Like they're going to think I'm making fun of being positive. And I was like, I really don't want to do this. And they were like, no, it's part of the messaging that we want for you equals you. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, if I do this and someone says something to me, I'm sending them to you.
Yeah, right.
So I get ready, I go, and I remember waiting to go up on stage and looking at the crowd or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a little unnerving.
It was a packed night.
It was. And so I get up there and I'm like, okay, gotta do this. And no one knows this. Well, I've told this in interviews before, but no one knows. But I had just bought a pair of some really cheap tights. Okay. So I get to the microphone, and all of a sudden, I feel my padding shift. No. and it's going down my leg. And the music starts. So everyone's like, wow, she kept her coat on and it was so glamorous or whatever. I was keeping the coat on because of my hip pad was slipping down my leg.
I thought you were just giving us a Hollywood glamour moment with that coat. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, because the idea was that I was going to drop the coat and show the gown because of it was a really nice gown. That didn't happen.
It must have been so distracting just to feel your hip slide down your leg.
Yeah, so I'm trying to balance and keep this hip pad from going down my leg. Remember the lyrics and remember not to say unforgettable.
Right.
Sing. Right, sing. And then also I had no idea what I was going to say in the middle part. So it's off the top of my head. But from the second that I said undetectable at the very beginning, I could feel the crowd was with me. It was such a beautiful moment, very warm, and I just went with it.
It was the energy was palpable, and everyone was holding each other, and it was so beautiful.
You know, for people who are living with HIV, we finally have the science to back up what I kind of knew about a decade ago, that undetectable means you are untransmittable. And hopefully this will help us fight the stigma associated with being positive. Like never before has someone been undetectable in every way. And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. As long as you take your meds, that's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so undetectable knows that I am undetectable too.
Yeah, and the best moment for me was right afterwards. I was trying to get back inside of the building, and an older gentleman walked up to me and said, "Thank you for making me feel sexy again."
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So that was the moment that I realized this was a little bigger than what I thought it was. I was just like, oh, I'm just singing this song. I had no idea that it was going to resonate with so many people. So when Gord Amos posted it and it started circulating on Facebook, I was like, oh, okay. But then Mark S. King called me from I forgot where he lives. I think he lives in Baltimore or DC, one of the two. Okay. He called me and he was like, because we had just done a panel together. We had they booked us to have an argument about U equals U and what that meant in prep.
Interesting.
Yeah. I was giving the cons of what was coming with it, and he was giving all the plus. And it was a very good debate, and we were never rude to each other or whatever, but it was a good way of pointing out what was to come, because I knew some of the problems that were going to come with prep. Absolutely. So he had my number, I had his number, he called me, he's like, what is this video? I love it, blah, blah, blah. And then he asked me a couple of questions. He's like, I'm going to repost this. And that's when it went viral.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. What was it like for you dealing with that?
I've never been viral. I haven't been viral since. But it was amazing getting, messages from around the world, as far as Australia and Japan. And I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And people were sharing the video over and over again. And I have no idea how many times it was shared, but it was definitely a great moment, and it changed a lot of things for me. So I ended up being interviewed for Plus Magazine, which is a division of The Advocate.
Cool.
I thought, this is just going to be a section. They gave me the cover.
Of course they did.
and then other interviews came shortly after that, but the pandemic hit.
Right.
Right after that, and I'd started making plans to tour, to go and do the song at different places or whatever, and it just got. And one of them was for Detroit, which my husband was all excited about because he's a big Aretha Franklin fan, so he wanted to go and see all the Aretha stuff, and we were. Nope. None of that happened.
No.
Yeah. So we got shut down, and that was that.
Fuck, and it stayed an online viral sensation.
Yeah, this is, what's the funny thing is this is the second time that something big happened for me. The first time Bitch You Look Fierce got signed over in the UK, and then 9/11 happened.
Right.
And the buildings that held the offices for Filthy Bitch Records and all of them were in the Twin Towers.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Jesus.
So I get weary when something good happens. I'm like, okay, what's coming?
Someone duplicate the file. Someone oh my God, Jade. I just to circle back to the Undetectable song. I love the idea of making the message more joyful, and it's not a parody song necessarily, right? There's still something serious about it, but I'm not surprised that it went viral. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised only because it was a passing joke between me and my husband. We were grocery shopping and the song came on, and I just looked at him and went, "Undetectable," and he's like, "Oh, you have to do that." Yeah. And so it's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Do that on stage," and that's.
Your husband thinks. That's amazing. But for anyone who doesn't know, can you explain U equals U and the messaging around that a little bit?
U equals U is undetectable equals untransmittable. And that means as long as an HIV positive person is on their meds and they're undetectable, they cannot pass the virus on to their partners sexually. So, I sort of knew that before it became, I've had partners who were HIV negative, and things happen. It's nice to actually have the science to back that up and to actually be able to say, okay, look, your fears are unfounded at this moment. As long as you can prove that you're undetectable, you're fine.
Yeah. What is your take doing this kind of activist and community work in the city? How is HIV and AIDS awareness, just generally? Would you say people tend to, for the most part, know where to access information, and is the healthcare system, for the most part, set up appropriately, or?
There is a big disconnect with people of color.
Right.
So unfortunately, I don't think the messaging is getting out to them the way it's gotten out to white gay males. And the whole system seems to be set up towards white gay males. So women and people of color are all, indigenous people, they're all kind of over here. Right. And some of them, I know for a fact, there are tons of people in the Black community who don't believe it. They have no concept of it. They see ads for it or whatever, and they think, oh, well, that's for white people. Right. And so they don't see themselves in the advertising and in the messaging. So, that needs to be one of the number one priorities. For me, it has been a little difficult here in Canada relating with the Black community, only because I'm American and most of the Black community here is Caribbean. So they have a slight feeling. They feel a certain way about Americans. They like a lot of our stuff, but they aren't particularly, unless you're Beyonce or someone like that, they're not that interested. They want you to, as a DJ, I think I alienated a part of the community because I don't play soca and reggae. Right. It's not my background, and it would be like me trying to spin Latin music. I don't speak Spanish, so I couldn't I could try it, but like I wouldn't know what I'm playing.
Right.
And also, there are plenty of DJs here who already do that. So let them, let them shine. I consider myself a jack of all trades. I can play a little of it, but I can't do a whole night of it.
It's not your thing, right?
Yeah. So,
makes sense.
and also I just like mixed parties. I like everyone to come together. So if you're playing one type of music all night, then you're going to alienate another group.
Right.
So I would much rather play a little of everything and get everyone in the door, and hopefully they can all laugh and party and dance together.
Yeah, right.
So that's the way that I grew up in Tampa, is because of our scene was so small. You had the Leathermen, you had the drag queens, you had the twinks, you had everyone all on one dance floor.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
So.
How has your experience been at the Queer and Trans Research Lab as a community leader so far, and what does community work mean to you?
My experience so far has been great, I guess. I am so sorry I missed the first show and tell. I felt really, really bad, but at that moment when it was going on, I had signed on to endorse a candidate for city council,
Cool.
and but that fell apart that morning of the show and tell, and it was a nightmare. So far the things that I've attended and the people that I've gotten to work with have been lovely and very welcoming. I'm looking forward to my show and tell. I think it's going to hopefully shine a light on what it is that I do, and also why I do it and how others can. Because of literally, I just started with nothing. I mean, I'm still working with nothing, but I've opened a few doors, and I've went and, got people to believe in what it is that I'm trying to do and what I'm saying. So I think that that's one of the most important parts of community, and just creating spaces so people can come together and also have the conversations that they need to have, because of I've watched a lot of things play out in the general community, the LGBTQ2 plus community, the 2016 parade, when Black Lives Matters held it up or whatever. I'm not a part of Black Lives Matters. I think I just hit the mic.
That's okay.
I'm not a part of Black Lives Matters, but I understood what they were doing.
Right.
But I also knew that this was going to be a bad situation that played out really poorly. And I tried right after that to get the mayor, the city council, some of the community leaders together to meet. No one returned my calls. No one. And, no, I shouldn't say that. Two people did, but they were going to come to it if I could get it organized.
Maybe.
Yeah. I knew some people in Black Lives Matters, and I reached out to them, and no one got back to me. And that I think has to do with me being the American in the room.
Interesting.
And the reason that I wasn't part of Black Lives Matters was because of I am American. And unfortunately, I hate to put it this way, there weren't dead Black bodies in the streets here every day. That was in the States. So that's a whole nother thing. I understand that you were fighting to be at the table to make the decision. But it wasn't, it was a different urgency than what was going on in the States. And so that was a difficult time for me as well. But I've always tried to make spaces for people to come and talk. So I think that that's the most important message that I hope that I can pass on to others.
And then finally, for our younger viewers watching this, I'm curious if you could just say a couple of things. One, to any young person out there who's HIV positive and who is maybe not sure what to do at this point. Do you have any advice for anyone like that?
Okay, well, the first thing I'm going to plug is the Pause Planet Facebook group. We have over 11,000 members from around the world. If you have a question, if you just want to try and learn something or whatever, come join the group, post your question. there are tons of people who will answer you. And if we don't have the answer, we'll find someone. There's some doctors in the group as well and medical professionals. So if you have a question about the meds or a side effect or whatever, because, those are one of the things that they don't talk about is the side effects of the meds. And there are plenty. And you have to find the right cocktail for you, whatever works for you. So for someone who's newly diagnosed, definitely go see a doctor. Most doctors hate when I do this or whatever, but I'm going to tell you what I did. Back when I was diagnosed, the only thing that was available was AZT, or you say Z here. I watched a lot of my friends die on it. So I chose not to start meds immediately. And I'm glad that I did, because by the time I decided to do meds, they had perfected the medicine. So in 2005 was when I started taking meds. But I refused to take them back in the 90s because I just watched too many of my friends die. But the one thing I would tell you is listen to your body. Your body will tell you what it is that's going on. So if something feels wrong, go see a doctor. The decision about getting on the meds, they're going to push them on you immediately. They're going to tell you need to start. If your T cell count is at a reasonable high point, I wouldn't suggest starting right then. Wait because your body is doing what it needs to do. So if you're good without them for right now, don't take them, because of what happens is once you start, you're going to be on them for the rest of your life. And that's to keep you alive, but they're still finding out what the meds are doing to your body. And they constantly are checking your kidneys and your liver and all of those things, because of those things are at risk of being damaged. If you drink, if you do drugs and all that stuff, that's going to make it even worse. So once you find out you're HIV positive, make sure that you start taking care of yourself. Think of it as death becomes her. You have to take care of yourself in order to stay that beautiful. It is very, very vital that you stop drinking, stop doing drugs, stop all of that. I'm not saying to be a party pooper. Have a drink or two here or there, but if you have a drinking problem, if you have a drug problem, those things are really going to count against you once you start taking the cocktails. So whatever pill it is that they put you on. And then if you have any other illnesses, the HIV is going to enhance those. So I'm diabetic. So I had to find the right cocktail for me with my problems with the new tongue. I just got it. I had to find a balance between my HIV meds and my diabetic treatments. So these are all things that you need to consider when you're newly diagnosed.
Thank you so much for saying that. I also realized the way I asked it was only young people can get diagnosed. It just meant anyone with a new...
Yeah, but young people tend to think that they're invincible. Sure. And Lord knows I got diagnosed when I was 22. So, it's there's a lot to unpack, and there's a lot of things and also you will probably tend to blame yourself. Right. And that's not going to do you any good. It took me a while to wrap my head around that, these things happen, this is what it is. And at this point, which most people don't think about, for me, if I had the opportunity to go back and change it, I wouldn't. The reason why is because of all of the things that happened to me made me the person that I am today. And I'm happy with the person that I am today. I needed to go through all those things in order to be here right now. So if I had not become HIV positive, I would not be doing the work that I'm doing right now.
Finally, so anyone who wants to find your work online, to book your DJ skills, or book Jade, where can people find you?
Okay, I am on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm not on Snapchat. Just Google Jade Elektra if you are looking for someone to speak about HIV or someone to perform. I do perform. singing live costs a little more, but I'll lay a lip to a song for a reasonable price. And my DJ, I DJ for events as well. I probably will not do another bar mitzvah or one of those again. But anything else, a wedding, sure. If you have a club and you want a guest DJ who is experienced, I've been a DJ since 1985. Well, technically 1980, because I started in radio with my uncle there. So I had a love of music then, but I didn't start physically mixing and DJing until 85. So, and I also do video mixing as well.
What can't you do?
Yeah. I can't change a tire. That's what I can't do that. I can drive. I had a car in 1990 for about 8 months, but I never had a license. Different time. It was Florida. I only drove it at night. Yeah. So find me on any of those, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can find me under Jade Elektra, and that's Elektra with a K, and DJ Relentless. And my real name is Alfonso King Jr., so you can find me anywhere, and that's ALPHONSOKING.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much. And stream Legendary Darling by Jade Elektra.
Oh, please do.
Find it on all music platforms?
Yeah, it's on Spotify. I think it's on YouTube. It's everywhere. So please find my music, and hopefully you will enjoy and learn about the world of bitch tracks.
I'm back. And although I know you thought I was missing in action, I came here specifically tonight to tell you just one thing. You look fierce. That's right, I said fierce. And when I say fierce, I don't mean as in Naomi Campbell fierce. I mean more like, let's say, Glenn Campbell. Bitch, you look fierce. 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 Bitch, you look fierce.
Walk fierce, talk fierce. Walk fierce, talk fierce. Walk fierce, talk fierce. Walk fierce, talk fierce.